Hey everybody, it's Tim from Tadabase here, and welcome to DataBridge. DataBridge allows you to bridge the gap between your Tadabase application and any other platforms or services you might be using to store and manage data. Simply choose any service from our growing list of DataBridge connections, and in just a matter of seconds, you can seamlessly bring over your external data into your Tadabase application, not only to view it, but also to interact with it and merge it with existing Tadabase data. Whether you want to get a list of tasks for a particular project inside of ClickUp to review on the fly, or maybe you want to see a list of all the newest customers that have been created in Stripe, or keep up on your accounting inside of QuickBooks by bringing in all of the invoice data and displaying it inside of your application. All of these things and more are possible with DataBridge to allow a perfect harmony between database applications and external platforms and services. So let's dive into an example of one of those services now. So today we're going to be taking a quick look at the QuickBooks DataBridge connection. We can simply navigate to the DataBridge menu item here and search for QuickBooks in order to begin authorizing and installing this DataBridge connection. Clicking Authorize and Set Up will give us an opportunity to log in using our QuickBooks email and password. And once we're logged in and authorized, all we need to do next is get our company ID. If you don't know your company ID, we can simply click the help link here that's going to take us into QuickBooks where we can find that company ID. And once we have that, we can simply just paste it inside the company ID field. So we'll jump over to our page builder now and start to go over some of the specifics inside that QuickBooks DataBridge connection. We'll start with this page called QuickBooks Customers. I'll add a DataBridge component to this page and choose QuickBooks. On the next screen, we have the option to choose List or Details, which gives us different options based on what we want to view. Now, in my case, I want to list all of the customers that live inside of QuickBooks, so I'm going to choose Customers. But as you can see, there are many other objects or endpoints here that we can access from QuickBooks in order to view the data that lives inside of QuickBooks. So by choosing Customers, I can simply just click Next and update and save that component, and we are done. We are now viewing QuickBooks data dynamically through DataBridge in just a matter of seconds. All of the data that we see here on screen lives in QuickBooks and is simply being retrieved and displayed through Tadabase DataBridge. Now, there's some specific functions that we can use inside the QuickBooks DataBridge connection, such as this link called Open Customer in QuickBooks. This is a predefined link available inside the customer's data source that allows us to just directly link to that customer inside of QuickBooks. You see, if I add that link here and go back to my page, we're going to have this new link here where I can simply just click it, and it's going to open up and bring me directly into QuickBooks to view that particular customer. These are all pre-built into DataBridge connections and are specific to the different type of connection. So QuickBooks Customers is going to have this particular link, but you might have different options for links inside of, let's say, QuickBooks Invoices. So viewing the data that's coming in from QuickBooks is cool and all, but we can do a lot more. Okay, now what if we want to start to make this a little bit more interactive? I'm going to go back to the page builder here and add a second DataBridge component. This time I'm going to choose Invoices by Customer because these two endpoints can work together. I can use the customer information that's coming from the component on the top of the page, and I can send it to the component that we're creating now. I can leave customer ID blank because we're going to be filling in that data dynamically. And from here, again, I can just simply update and save it without making any modifications to the DataBridge component itself. Up on the upper component, which is displaying our customer information, I'm going to add the Search Another Component action button and select the QuickBooks component that's at the bottom of the page. And then I can continue to configure this action button by selecting the customer ID field and the customer ID value. All that means is that that is the field and the value that we're going to use in order to search the invoices table below. Going back to this particular page, we now have a fully dynamic system that allows us to search for invoices based on the customers that are loading above. And again, all of this is happening dynamically without touching Tadabase's data tables at all. But of course, we can if we want to. Once again, we'll go back into our builder here, and just to show you, I have already set up a customer's data table that actually is going to store the customer name, the email, and the QuickBooks ID. By saving something like the QuickBooks customer ID, we're going to have that available to us at all times. And now we can start to use DataBridge components inside of things like detail pages and in other areas of the Tadabase builder. Back inside of the page builder here, we are going to go into our customers DataBridge component, and I'm going to choose actions, and then I'll choose insert Tadabase record. We are going to choose the customer's data table because that's where we want to insert the record to. And now we can start setting those data table values like customer from DataBridge values. So from the values that are being loaded in from QuickBooks. We can set the customer name to full name, and we'll set the customer ID to a DataBridge value of ID. And after we've created that customer, we are just going to simply redirect to our customers page so that we can continue working inside of our application. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this customers page that we will be redirected to, and then into the customer detail page. Now on this page, we are displaying the customer and the QuickBooks ID, which means I can then add a DataBridge component to this detail page, except this time we can do things like display customer details. Now for here, we can just simply select any customer, but we can modify that inside the options tab here. Rather than having the customer come from a custom value, we can have it come from this page's record value of the QuickBooks ID. We can also add another component to view invoices by that particular customer. And by setting up that options configuration in the same way we just did, where the customer ID is coming dynamically from the page's record value, then that means that we can now trigger DataBridge components to go and retrieve information from our external connection and display it inside of our page. And we're using Tadabase data in order to do that. To review this whole system that we have now created, we'll simply go back to our application and we will click the Insert Record button in order to create a new customer inside of our Tadabase database. Now that we have this customer saved, we can go to our details. Again, we are dynamically pulling in this customer detail information from QuickBooks, and we are dynamically pulling in all of the invoices from QuickBooks for this particular customer. So as you can see here, there's a lot to get started with for the QuickBooks DataBridge connection. At a minimum, it's incredibly easy to set up pages and DataBridge components that allow you to view QuickBooks data inside of your Tadabase application. Furthermore, by using action buttons, we can start to merge that QuickBooks data with Tadabase in order to build this hybrid system where we are loading Tadabase data, but we are using that data to then trigger DataBridge connections that bring in additional data that lives outside of our Tadabase application. There's tons and tons and tons that we can do here, and this is simply just some small examples of how you can get started with the QuickBooks DataBridge connection.